Hi traders, and thanks for joining on this webinar for premium members who want to get a little bit more out of their premium membership, and especially BuzzPro, where many traders may not have actually made themselves fully aware with what's actually available. There's a lot of reports which are available on the website, but not had time or don't really understand what's being shown or even how to use the reports to get the most out of it. So this webinar is kind of a very short. We'll hopefully try and keep it to around 30 minutes, where we could go through a few reports and then we can have a bit more of a Q&A around further bits of information that you're looking to get out of it and where to find that information. So the first thing to kind of we want to get across is what is IndexGain. Now there are a lot of traders who have just started or joined up more recently, and there'll be some who have joined a while back, who are just kind of joining the webinar to see if there's anything that they can take away from this webinar to get out of the membership. So the first thing is just going over what is IndexGain. So IndexGain is bringing together football index data and putting it together with a trader community, which is on Slack. So if any of you watching this webinar are currently signed up for as part of your membership, whether you're on the free or premium, make sure you're on the Slack community. Now you can get the link to join the Slack community if you log in to the IndexGain website and visit your dashboard, member dashboard. It started in 2017 as primarily a community platform. It was like what you see now on Slack, but to the minuscule of scale. There was, I think, at one point, I think 6 months in, we're probably about 500 members in, to a point now where we're touching around 4,000 members on Slack. And then in summer of 2018, just after the World Cup, IndexGain guys ploughed in all the data for the previous season and started monitoring the prices and match day statistics, even media buzz scores for every player, and started providing that to the community from August 2018. So all the data reports that you look at on IndexGain on the website, part of the BuzzPro, is all from 18-19. Now they're currently working on being able to switch between 18-19 season and the 19-20 season, so that will be coming along very soon. So it's best just right now to familiarize yourselves with what reports are available. So IndexGain is actually split into three sections. There's the community, which you're all aware of, which lives on Slack, where you can use to ask advice, have discussions and share research. Lots of other channels on Slack as well around kind of football index and fantasy football as well, and so that's where you get all your price move reports. And then you've got BuzzBot, which is the trading assistant tool, which actually lives on Slack. So these are all your commands like player info and moves and fallers and climbers and yields and dividend winners. So yeah, you can use BuzzBot, and that's primarily for Slack, which is kind of BuzzBot has been developed for when you're on the go. When you're in a cab, or if you're in a taxi, or if you're with mates down the pub and you just want to run some reports and discuss some. You always get that scenario where two people are having a discussion, or a group of you a discussion. You can pull off a report and get all your stats as and when you need to. BuzzPro, which we'll be focused on today, lives on the website. You have to log into the website, and then it opens up a wealth of reports with so much data, depending on the different questions you want answered. So that's in a nutshell what IndexGain is. So what you want to do is head over to the IndexGain website, and you want to head over and just log in. So the first thing you want to do is log in, and now some traders aren't really kind of aware of the reports actually sit on the website and the confusion between BuzzBot and BuzzPro. So what we're going to do is just go through a few very simple reports, the most used reports. So head over to the website, hit login, and you'll notice that once you've logged in, you'll be presented with your member dashboard. And from here, there's a section about all the latest things that have been added on IndexGain, whether it's BuzzBot or BuzzPro, and you can find, if you've not logged in or you've been away for a few weeks and you just want to see if there's anything new that's been added that you might have missed, log into your member dashboard and it will be displayed here. And then you've got a whole load of kind of video tutorials which are all on YouTube, so do check out those videos as well. So the first report we're going to look at is the BuzzPro, and this is where all the reports live. And as you can see, they're all categorized by different subjects. So if we're looking at player analysis here, and the first one we're going to look at is the Advanced Player Screener report. So just click on that and wait for that to load. And AMD actually stands for Actual Match Data. So IndexGain very recently started merging football index data, such as PB averages and dividends and yields, with actual match data, such as goals, passes and shots and crosses. So what you can now see is a bit more of a bigger picture of a player performance, and add some context to some of those scores or averages that a player's achieved. Now, some traders tend to ask, what do some of these actually mean? So what I'm going to do is very quickly just kind of highlight this key up here. STD dev, so standard deviation, actually is a bit more of a mathematical term for the group of scores that a player achieves and plus or minus from the average. So you can see here that whilst Neymar has a high average, he also has the ability to score higher as well. I tend to kind of think of this as a mark out of 100. The closer to 100, the more chance of a player achieving higher scores. Thus, also lower scores, but because this average is 158, you know, if you took 81 off that, it's still a lot higher than some of the players who might be kind of in that price range. So it's a good measure to use to be able to see the volatility or the range of scores a player can achieve. Slightly mathematical term. You may want to do some Googling after this to find out a little bit more about standard deviations. The next one is PB div. So PB is a term which stands for performance buzz, which was used widely in the Football Index community before Football Index actually started to use the term match day dividends. So PB, whenever you see PB, it means performance buzz, which also means match day. Implied dividends, now ImpDiv is implied dividends, and I like to think of this as what the player should have earned based on the scores he's achieved in this season. So we're looking at data from the 18-19 season. So you can see here Neymar, it's a very close correlation between what he should have earned and what he has earned. And you'll just notice there as I hover over any of these metrics, you'll see this price chart that pops up. So you know, that's very simple to understand. You've got a 7-day price chart as well as a season price chart, and you can see some prices for peak points and lowest points. So just going back to ImpDivs, so yeah, you can see kind of what he should have earned, what he actually earned. So we're looking for players who might have, let's find Raheem Sterling. There he is, and you can see his implied dividend yield is 18 pence. His actual is 7. So there's a big difference between what he should have earned based on his scores achieved and what he actually won. And it's just a measure of how lucky or unlucky a player has been. So you could say Sterling has been very unlucky during this season not to have come away with 18 pence, at least 18 pence in dividends. He's actually come away with 7. There's more information on implied dividend yield, a bit more of a detailed blog post. If you just head over to the IndexGain website, head over to the Launchpad area where there's loads of help articles, and just search in Launchpad for implied dividend yields. So let's get on with how you actually use this report. At the bottom of the report, you'll see a load of filters here. You can select players, you can select a specific team, if you just want to look at stats for players in Bundesliga, and then you can start playing around with some of these metrics to try and get a short list or a selection of players. So I'm going to just play around with this and go, right, okay, I'm looking for players below £1.50. They need to have at least played 10 games, and then their average PB is above, let's select 50. And they need to have been able to, at least in one game this season, scored over 150 points. Now, I'm not interested in old players, so I know the newbies will kind of be very interested in the younger players as well as experienced traders. But let's kind of narrow this down to just maximum 25 years old. I'm just gonna, and you can just see this grey bar here, which shows you, how many results there are. I want to narrow this down a little bit further, so I'm just going to select midfielders and forwards. And now I can see here, I've got my midfielders and forwards. They're all sorted by price by default. Now, because I've selected midfielders and forwards, one of the metrics that I particularly like is shots. So if they shoot a lot, it means they've got a better chance of scoring a goal. And if they score a goal, it results in more capital appreciation. So I've now sorted all of them. I've implemented all of my filters, and I've got a nice little selection of players, and I've sorted them by shots. Now what I'm going to do is just hover over and see if I can find any players who are kind of trended down or trending downwards, or looking at they look like they're kind of bouncing from a particular low. So you can go through and just kind of familiarize with some names and start sorting by any metric. So let's sort by a player who's been able to score over 150. So now what I can see is that Rodrigo de Paul here of Udinese has scored over 150 matchday points 8 times, and he scored over 175 5 times. So he's actually won 13p in dividends when he actually should have won 7p. So this says that he's been very lucky, the opposite of Sterling. However, he's got a decent PB average. He shoots a lot. I think he's on set pieces, hence the crosses being in green. So just to kind of touch on the greens, if the darker the green, the better the metric. So if you've got a player with lots of greens in their row, then it's a favourable player. That player has got some good stats and data behind them. The more light greens they are, the kind of the weaker the stats. So yeah, that's what those two represent. Number of times the player scored over 150 and 175. So this is how you use the advanced screener. I think I've covered all of the basics in terms of how you use the filters, how you can sort the data, and how you hover over and view price charts for specific players. So that's how you use the Advanced Player Screener AMD report, which you can find in BuzzPro Player Analysis. Now what we're going to move on to the second report, which is the BuzzPro, and we're going to go in price, the Advanced Price Movement report. Now this report shows you very similar to the Player Screener report, but it's very price focused. So we're going back 20-21 days, depending on kind of when the report is updated. You might catch some of the current day's price movements whenever you're looking at the report. What this report is actually showing you, or what it's used for, is finding players who may have been overbought, oversold, or may not have moved. So you've got a date selector here at the bottom. And if you're only particularly interested in from the last few days, you'll select Friday to the latest date, and the report now updates with the price movements from Friday the 19th all the way to Saturday 28th here, and you can see last report update was at 12 p.m. And you can see here now that all the players, again, sorted by their close price and the price difference. So they opened on the Friday 19th at 12. Neymar was £7.59, and at this moment in time the close price this time and date here is £7.43, and that's a 16p drop, which equates to a 2% change. What you can do with this report is, again, there's filters here. So if you're looking for players who have a high PB average, they're regular performers, so or regular players. And now I've got players who are, I'm going to choose my 25-year-olds again, or max 25. And now I've got all my under 25s who have a PB average of higher than 80 and they've played in 25 or more games. That's the picture I'm looking at now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort this change column. So now I've got highest to lowest. So now I can see since the 19th, Jadon Sancho is up 27p, Dybala is up 26p, Mbappe is slowly risen 17p, and so forth. I could see now. And what I'm interested in is players at the other end of the spectrum. I want to see players who've got a high average, under 25, they're regular players, and here we see now Diallo, Kessie, Ryan Fraser's dropped off a bit, Ginter, Højbjerg, Hakimi has dropped off a bit, Jonathan Tah. So if you hold any of these players, it might be, right, okay, it's actually 4p cheaper than Friday, so it might be a good time to either buy in or top up. And what I'm looking at here is actually players who are high performers that get good scores. You may add another layer in here, and we're just going to change this to PB Max 175, and I can see here now Diallo, Kessie, Fraser, they all managed to score over 175. You can see the peak scores column, PB Max score column here. So I'm looking at players who have got good stats or good averages or peaks behind them, and so thus those who have fallen might be good players to actually buy into. And this is a report that you'll probably use, every week, every 2 weeks. If you want to use, or see price data over longer periods, you might want to actually then start looking at maybe using BuzzBot and searching for players, or are doing the IG Moves team command if there's specific players that you're aware of and you just want to have a check. So yeah, that's how you use the advanced price movement report. So you can play around with the filters, choose different time frames going back as far as 20-21 days, so 3 weeks, and then seeing if any short-term movements have led to players that you could potentially buy or even sell if they've risen quite a fair bit over time. It's a good way of spotting. If you select, it might take a little while, but selecting some long-term holes in your portfolio and selecting those, and you might notice, I've noticed in my portfolio that Depay has kind of risen a fair bit, as well as kind of Ben Yedder, who's slowly dripped away from 140 down to £1, and he's just gone unnoticed. Slowly kind of dropped 30p, 1p every day for 30 days, and they're the sort of players that you tend not to notice because the price is less volatile, but almost like a flat, a tire with a little hole in it. The air just comes out of it very, very slowly, and it's hard to notice these things until it's actually, the tire's gone flat. So use this report to kind of just monitor some players in your portfolio, as well as scouting for other players. So that's the advanced price report, and we're going to now move on to understanding player base report. So head over to player base scores in the player analysis again. So player base scores. Player base scores, you may have heard the phrase baseline. Baseline refers to a player's score that he's able to achieve without actually scoring a goal, getting a game-winning goal, assists, or clean sheets. So there's a definition up there in the header area. A player's ability to score points without goals, game-winning goals, assists, or clean sheets. So you can see here, Kimmich has the highest base score. So this is his average score without any goals or any assists or any clean sheets is 135, and that's made up through things like crossing, passing, tackling, all the different key actions that he might perform in a game. And then you've got here in this column bonus average, which is the average of goals, game-winning goals, assists. So some players are heavily reliant on all these kind of bonuses, and some players have a really good baseline, and if they do score, the chances of them winning dividends is higher also. So this is why some players refer to baselines and good base scores, because on the off chance that they do score or get a clean sheet, or they provide a couple of assists, there's a good chance that these players might win some dividends. And this is a report that you might want to kind of refer back and forth to between the advanced screener report. So if I know Kimmich here has got a really good base, I might go back to the screener report and look at how many passes per game he has, how many tackles per game, how many crosses per game, so you get an idea of how involved a player is. Likewise, you've got the PB divs and implied divs metrics here, as we just shown in the screener report. Now, if I select a player, I'm going to choose Kimmich. You can see now on the right hand side you've got a window here that shows all of his scores. All of his scores from all the games he has appeared in. And what it won't show you is where sub appearances, for example, it won't take into consideration substitute, where he's named a substitute. So you get minus 15 points if you're on the losing team on the bench, as well as 18 points if you're on the bench and you win and the team wins. So it's just players that he's matches that he's appeared in. And you can see here, Kimmich had a football index score, so that's his overall match day score, 324 points, of which 209 of that was made up through passes, crosses, shots, all the things outside of the bonuses that we just discussed there. And he actually got 115 points worth of bonus, which was made up of 40 game-winning goal, 40 for the goal, 10 for the assist, and 25 for the clean sheet. So you couldn't get any better than that, really. It's one of every little bonus point. Hence, he won 6p dividends in the new style since the share split. So it's kind of showing you the dividends, backdating it from the share split. And you can see here how many scores he's had, how many times he's relied on a clean sheet for dividend. So you can see he's won dividends here, where he got 2 assists. He won dividends here and here, where he got clean sheets. Here he won. So Kimmich, if he gets an assist or clean sheet, is more than likely to win dividends, as it shows in the stats. You can do this for every player. So let's choose Cruz, and you can see here Cruz. This is the only time where he won dividends for absolutely doing nothing in terms of goals, assists, clean sheets. So he actually won 4p dividends, whereas here he scored a goal and got an assist. However, no game-winning goal, but he still managed to rack up 268 from just passing, crossing, and ball recoveries and things like that. So that's how you use the base scores report. And again, the same, you've got some filters here. So let's just unselect Cruz. If you're looking for players with a decent base score in Bundesliga, just select Bundesliga. Now you've got all Bundesliga players with high base scores. So anyone over 100, primarily looks like all defenders. So it's kind of a starting point for you to start looking at decent players. You can filter by position, price, age, all your PB averages and bonus averages, and have a play around so you can find players with a high base score. So I'm just going to flip over here now to League One. The reason being is I want to show you, if I sort this by bonus average, Mbappe. So this is one that's come up quite a bit. The argument or the discussion that Mbappe heavily reliant on having to score at least 1 or 2 goals to win PB, and that's quite correct because his base is so low because he doesn't get involved in build-up play, that he needs this high average in order to kind of compensate or to try and build up the average in order to challenge for dividends. You can see here, other players such as Kai Havertz, average of 75 and a bonus average. However, Havertz is one of those few players that has scored, if I just sort this FI score, 200. He's scored over 200, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And he's won dividends twice. So to not have won dividends, scoring over 200, very, very unlucky. But you can see that he's got a decent base and he's also able to score lots of goals. Hence his price premium of £3.50. Now you could say that could be worth a little bit more due to his high base and a high bonus score. So that's how you use the base scores report. You can find some, unearth some gems who have shown good baseline. So this will be an interesting report to kind of flick back between the new season and the previous season to see if any players have increased their base in terms of, because they've been moved to a different position or the team is playing in a different style. You can see, for example, let's say Milot Rashica, his base average is 49, and then next season it might jump up to 65, 70, all because he's actually on set pieces because Max Cruz has left. Little things like that where we might be able to start comparing base scores season to season and seeing if a player is actually improving base scores, hence the more likelihood of possibly challenging or even winning dividends. So that's how you use the base scores report. One more thing, which is the how to find players with the most capital appreciation. So this is all about price. So what we're going to do, price attributed to a player, is the total player return report. So let's have a look at player analysis, total player return, and so a few traders have said, how do I find which players have appreciated in price the most over a certain time frame? So you could use IG moves on BuzzBot, but what we want to do here, and I'm going to show you as another example, I'm only interested in players who are max age 23 in the Premier League. So all players in Premier League under 23 since, and I'm going to change my date frame to 1st of June. So imagine I'm doing some media madness analysis or something to do with the summer break. So I've sorted my filters out. I've now got players who are under 25 and what I can do is sort by cap gain. So if I sort by cap gain, I can now see all of my players under my criteria and how many pence or how much they've appreciated in price by pence. And I can also see in percentage. So Lookman is up 48 pence, that's 50% price appreciation. In that time he's won no dividends. So these columns here, which are blank, you can sort by MB divs. So what I'm looking at now is all players max age 23 in the Premier League, and as you can see here, Wan-Bissaka 30p, Daniel James 11p media buzz, Rashford, Pulisic has won 4p in dividends. And what this report is actually used for is to understand two date frames, your buy point and your sell point. So you can adjust this to whenever you want to. And what this report shows is that if you bought Wan-Bissaka on the 1st of June, you would have bought him at £1.99. And then if you sold him on your end point, which is 28th of July, you would have sold him at the closing instant sell price, which is £2.02. That's a cap gain of 3p. You would have made 1.51%, but in that time you would have earned 30 pence in dividends. That is a total dividend yield of 15%. You would have paid 4p in commission for the instant sell, 2% commission. So your total profit loss would be 29p. So whilst capital appreciation you would have only made 3 pence, you would have actually earned 30p in dividends. So your total return would have been 14.55%. So this is a good way of seeing and viewing players who have appreciated in price or even depreciated in price, but actually, they've kind of softened the blow by earning dividends along the way. So let's just move this scale back to the 1st of January. So 1st of January, and I'm going to sort again by cap gain. And you can see here, Hudson Odoi has appreciated in price since 1st of Jan by £2.66. That's a capital gain appreciation of 163%. In that time, he's won 16p in dividends. So you can start scrolling down and start looking at players who've depreciated. And you can see Lucas Torreira here. He's actually down 22p since the 1st of Jan. And you can start looking at players who potentially are now priced lower than where they were start of the January transfer window or even the second half of the season. And you can see if any players have earned dividends along the way. So yeah, a good way to kind of do some analysis on players who have dropped in price. Also do some dividend analysis to work out your total profit and loss. And remember, this is a report used on the basis that you bought at on a particular date and you sold on a particular date, and what your total return would have been if you instant sold. So do have a play around with this report. Now, one of the ways that many traders have asked, how do we actually view price charts? So all this kind of tables, it kind of doesn't show or put any prices into context in terms of highs and lows. So I'm going to show you one quick tip how to view price charts. To view price charts, you're going to have to use the comparison tool. So if there's a particular player or a set of players that you want to view price charts for, use the comparison tool. So by default, let's just choose Ramsey. And what you see here at the bottom, as you can see here, is a price chart from the start of the season. If we head back, 14th of May it goes back to. And you can kind of go through and you can find a high point for Ramsey and hover over that point. Let's get the cursor there. £1.54 was his high point on 13th of October. He reached a low of somewhere around here, 83p. And from 83p, you can see his price has kind of trended upwards. Now, let's add another player into this mix. Let's choose Brozovic. I'm going to choose another player, Cruz. And I'm going to choose Isco. So you select your 4 players, and now what you can see is this graph price chart here. To view this in a kind of a bit more in a bigger fashion, you right click, hit show data, and now I've got myself a price chart from beginning of the season all the way to the current date, and you can see here who's trending down, who's trending up, who's remained flat, and as you can see, Isco's price really hasn't moved anywhere. Whereas if you look at the Tony Cruz's chart, from a high of £2 when kind of Manchester United links may have surfaced, it's actually just trended down. He had another little bit of an increase, and now he's kind of floating away. And all players, if you look at the trend here, they all seem to kind of follow in the same pattern. So you can kind of see these players are sometimes kind of compared to each other quite often. So that's how you view price charts using the comparison tool. And just hit the let's just quickly show you that again. Choose your players or choose a single player, right click on the chart and choose show data. I'll go back to here, show data, and you've now got your price chart. So a little tip to view price charts. If you are interested in using the comparison tool, you may want to learn about Candlestick Visualizations. So these players, what you're looking for is whoever's got the highest candlestick or wicker all the way to the right hand side is more likely to score higher, or has scored higher match day or PB scores. The white represents their average, and all of these little blue dots represents the scores that they've achieved. The bigger the dot, that means they've won some dividends. So Ramsey's peak score is 222, comparing to Tony Cruz. Cruz has the ability to score higher, in terms of he has scored higher, whereas these grey kind of areas here is the clump of scores, and you can see the range. Cruz has a better range of scores compared to Ramsey, and Brozovic has kind of almost compared to Cruz here as well. So yeah, that's how you use the player comparison tool, as well as using the tip to view price charts here as well. So that wraps up this webinar on how to use those 4 reports. We'll be doing another webinar soon. If there's other reports that you've come across, not quite aware of how it works or how to use it, but these 4 reports, the advanced player screener, the price reports, the base score, the total player return, and using price charts, should help you kind of navigate around, start answering questions that you may have on what was the highest price, what was the lowest price, does this player shoot more than this player, does this player have a better average than another one, has this player got the ability to score higher than another one. So you can start kind of comparing players using BuzzPro. And as mentioned right at the beginning, BuzzPro is very, very detailed. It allows you to filter, sort data. So hence why it's better viewed on a laptop or a desktop, and it's very fiddly to use on a mobile because there's so many filters and checkboxes and things like that. So That's where BuzzBot comes into play. Quick, easy research on Slack, whereas BuzzPro is your kind of sit down and do some real kind of analysis using those reports. So we're going to hand over to Bishop now, who's going to kind of summarize a few things. But if there's any questions regarding any of these reports and any of the webinar coverage, do head over on Slack onto the webinar channel and ask any questions. Like I said, we've got the ability to switch to the new season data, and you'll be able to do some comparison very shortly. So more than likely we may do another webinar once the new season has kicked off, or if there's any reports that other traders want to go through, 3 or 4 reports that the traders want to view in a bit more detail on how to use them, we'll be quite happy to do another report in the near future. But other than that, handing over to Dan now, and that ends our webinar. So I just want to say thanks to everyone for joining in this webinar. It's the first one, we're still learning, and we hope to kind of catch you guys again on our next webinar. Thanks a lot.